The bell calls us together in covenant. To awaken us from forgetfulness that we may strive. I'm already getting instructions. To awaken us from forgetfulness that we may strive to live in harmony. Today, let us especially remember our covenant to affirm and promote the sixth principle, the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. Good morning.
Good morning.
We would invite you to rise in body or spirit for our opening hymn, number 170 in the gray hymnal. We are a gentle, angry people. Those of you who are on Zoom can find the lyrics on the last page of the online order of service, linked to your worship reminder email, and on our website, CUUCWP.org. Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning. It's nice to see everybody.
Welcome to Community Unitarian Universalist Congregation on unceded land formerly of the Lenape Nation. I'm Emily Economo, your worship associate this morning. I welcome you to this home of liberal religion, 5 tenets of which are: revelation is continuous, relations must rest on free consent, not hierarchical authority. We have a moral obligation to build a just and loving community. We cannot be good without good institutions, and transformation is possible. The mission of our congregation is to nurture each other in our spiritual journeys, foster compassion and understanding within and beyond our community, and engage in service to transform ourselves and our world. Participating in our social justice teams is one way we engage in service to transform our world. Friends and visitors are welcome to participate on our teams, and you'll find flyers in the lobby to learn more. A special welcome to our visitors. If you're new today, wave a hand so we can welcome you. Yes, hi. So, a special, if you're new and if you're online, introduce yourself in the chat as well. Those online may find a link in the order of service on our website at CUUCWP.org to follow the order of service as well. At the point of joys and sorrows, we'll pass the microphone along so you can share some thoughts you have. And for those of you on Zoom, you can start this now in the chat. If you want to add a joy, a sorrow, or a milestone, just put the word joy, sorrow, milestone so we know who wants to share that. I'd like to introduce Carrie McEvoy. Welcome. Welcome. She's a candidate for Unitarian Universalist ministry. She recently served as intern minister at Community Church of New York in Manhattan and has earned a Master's of Divinity from Meadville Lombard Theological School in Chicago, Illinois. She lives in Norwalk, Connecticut, and is a member of the Unitarian Church in Westport, where she has served as a lay leader in many different capacities, like all of us, including vice chair of the Board of Trustees. Starting this fall, Carrie will serve as a chaplain resident at Bridgeport Hospital. Welcome, Carrie. For the chalice lighting. On the 6th Sunday of the season, we dedicate our chalice to the 6th principle of our faith, the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. Please join me in the chalice lighting words from Dag Hammarskjöld in your order of service. We invite those online to light a chalice or candle at home and read along from the order of service link on our website. Read along with me. Each morning, we must hold out the chalice of our being to receive, to carry, to give back. Words of Norman V. Mailer. Do not leave your cares at the door. Do not leave there your pain, your sorrow, or your joys. Bring them with you into this place of acceptance and forgiveness. Place them on the common altar of life and offer them to the possibility of your worship. Come then and offer yourself to potential transformation by the creative process that flows through you and all life.
We'll now sing number 318, We Would Be One. Rise and body or spirit.
Our reading is from Naomi Shahidnai. A man crosses the street in rain, stepping gently, looking 2 times north and south, because his son is asleep on his shoulder. No car must splash him. No car drive too near his shadow. This man carries the world's most sensitive cargo. But he's not marked. Nowhere does his jacket say fragile, handle with care. His ears fill up with breathing. He hears the hum of a boy's dream deep inside him. We are not going to be able to live in this world if we're not willing to do what he's doing with one another. The road will only be wide. The rain will never stop falling.
Please join each other in a greeting of peace be with you.
What's her name? Eleanor. Oh, that's my niece. How old is she? 4. Yeah, wonderful. Maya is 3 and a half.
Sure, Maya and Ellie are going to be along. Yes. Nice to meet you.
At this time, we open our hearts to all people of the world who are suffering the effects of war, hunger, or injustice, or natural disaster. We hold in our hearts those among us here who have joys to celebrate or whose hearts are heavy.
For all those joys and sorrows, both shared and not shared, we hold in our hearts a candle of peace, a candle of hope, a candle of love, and a candle of celebration. Let us carry it gently yet firmly, with the knowledge that doing so draws us closer to each other and to the God of our understanding. We will now observe 60 seconds of silence.
Our next hymn is Our World is One World. It's in the Great Hymnal, number 134. Please rise in body or spirit.
world community of peace, liberty, and justice for all begins in our hearts, in our homes, and in this, our congregation, as a place of peacemaking, fairness, and free religion. We are a people of faith called to build peace and justice, understanding that violence is any thought, word, or deed that treats a being like an object or diminishes a being's sense of value or security. We are called to the work of ending violence. Our congregation guides us in cultivating inner peace and the skills of compassion. The love and commitment we show each other here waters the trees of peace, liberty, and justice for everyone, everywhere. From the resources we have, then let us offer a portion to maintain and build this congregation. This summer we share the plate with the Ramapo Lenape Community Center, a hub of the New Jersey tribe's social and educational programs. You may use the donate button on our website, the top left QR code on the paper order of service, or make a check out to CUUC with the memo to share the plate. Recognizing the gifts we have all received and the gift that is this community, the offering will now be greatly given and greatly received.
Today, earlier in our service, we dedicated the chalice to the sixth principle of Unitarian Universalism, the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. It seemed to me like a good time to talk about covenant. What is covenant? Rebecca Parker, former president of Starr King School for the Ministry, says that covenant means to come together by making a promise as when two people promise to love and to care for one another. Covenant attempts to make explicit how we agree to live together and how we treat one another. There are different kinds of covenants. For instance, wedding vows are covenants two people make to each other when starting a marriage. There are unconditional covenants. Early in the Jewish scriptures, God makes a covenant with Abraham. God promises Abraham that he will have many descendants and that God will provide for them and protect him and his people. God doesn't ask anything from Abraham in return, aside from trusting that God will do what he promised to do. The covenant between God and Abraham's descendants was unconditional. A little later in the Jewish scriptures, God makes another covenant, this time between God and the Hebrew people through the prophet Moses. God gave Moses 613 commandments, including the famous 10 commandments. And God promised that he would continue to protect and provide for the Hebrews, his chosen people. In exchange, God expected them to obey his commandments and to make the world a better and holier place. This the people agreed to. This covenant between God and the Hebrew people was conditional. Covenants can vary in how specific they are. The 10 Commandments are pretty clear. For example, you generally know when you've killed or you've told a lie. The commandments say that one shouldn't take God's name in vain and people should honor one's parents. These commandments are a little more vague, but they're still relatively specific. Wedding vows can vary in their specificity. Some couples vow to stay married until one of them dies. Other wedding vows are broader, like my husband's vow to do what he could to foster my happiness. We've mentioned the 6th Unitarian Universalist principle a couple of times already. The UU principles are actually part of a covenant made by congregations who belong to the Unitarian Universalist Association. The section of the UUA bylaws containing the UU principles actually starts like this. We, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote, followed by the principles. So, the principles, when we say the principles, we're actually saying we, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person, and so on, throughout those 6 remainders of the principles. By dedicating our chalice to the 6th principle today, you are covenanting to affirm and promote the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. This covenant doesn't specifically say how we will affirm and promote this principle. It serves to remind us of the part of the work we agree to do as Unitarian Universalists. It is a statement of intention. We don't agree to a religious creed to belong to a Unitarian Universalist congregation. To belong to this Unitarian Universalist congregation, we don't agree that a specific set of texts holds the one truth. The only thing we agree to as a member of the Unitarian Universalist congregation is, can you guess? Covenant. Unlike all other religious denominations, covenant is the only thing holding us together as a UU congregation. As a member of the community Unitarian Universalist congregation at White Plains, you are part of the congregation that pledges to your mission statement. As a member of this congregation, you are part of a member congregation of the Unitarian Universalist Association of Congregations, which covenants to affirm and promote the UU principles. The principles are a covenant made to the UUA by our congregation, not individually. As a Unitarian Universalist, I do not individually agree to affirm and promote the free and responsible search for truth and meaning. I do so as part of a religious community. UU Covenant is not a contract. A contract specifically outlines the expected behavior of the signees and specifies what will happen if the behavior falls short of that agreed to. UU Covenant, on the other hand, is aspirational. It's a guideline for how we would like to be in community, and unlike a contract, it doesn't specify consequences that might occur when a covenant is broken. Let's consider one of the pledges in your congregation's covenant of mission. The first part says that you will nurture each other in our spiritual journeys. There's nothing that indicates in this mission statement what happens if you fail to nurture each other in your spiritual journeys. You may also have different covenants for different purposes or contexts. I already spoke of the UU principles as one covenant your congregation has agreed to, and your mission statement is another. You may have a covenant of right relations for your congregation, and you may have another for a small group or committee that you belong to. I'll venture to say that nowhere in any of these covenants does it say what happens if someone breaks the covenant. UU Covenant is aspirational. UU Covenant is a guide for how we want to be with each other. It doesn't say that we have to be a certain way or else. It says we pledge to love and care for each other, and here's how we're going to try to do that, knowing that we will all fall short sometimes. A measure of a covenant is when, not if, a covenant is broken. When, not if, we fall short of our covenant, we don't get punished. We agree to stay in relationship, to take responsibility for any harm we may have caused, intentionally or not. We agree to engage in the process of atonement, reconciliation, repair if that is possible, and we resolve to do differently in the future. We're all imperfect, and when we fall short of the covenant, we don't get punished and ejected from the congregation. We are held lovingly accountable for our actions, but we are called back into covenant with loving acceptance that we are all imperfect and that we all want to become better people. Covenant is an agreement about how we will be in relationship. The purpose of a covenant is to guide us in accountably and responsibly staying in relationship. Did you have that friend as a child? The one who always made up the rules of the game as you were playing it? That friend always ended up winning the game, didn't they? Whenever the rules of a community remain unsaid, it's hard to know how to be in that community. Whenever the rules of a community remain unsaid or unwritten, those who have been there the longest know the culture, which puts newcomers at a disadvantage. Even if someone new wants to be in the community, it's not always clear how they're supposed to act until they get corrected by those who know the culture. The covenant of right relations, the specificity built into your covenant, makes the guidelines about how you want to be in community explicit. And it allows everyone in the community to learn how to play together. A covenant is not an individual bill of rights. As a member of Community UU congregation, you are part of a member congregation of the UUA Association of Congregations. The principles are not something an individual pledges to. You make these pledges not as an individual, but as part of your congregation. Now, how does that change the nature of covenant? To illustrate, I'm going to tell you a story about my recent trip to Jordan. Our tour guide was a member of a large extended family. He greeted family members wherever he went, and we went all over Jordan. At some point, we asked him about crime. He answered that crime was rare. Why? He said because the culture of Jordan is based on family. And if a member of a family does something wrong, it reflects on the whole family. I know this story isn't a perfect analogy for showing the importance of community covenant. Breaking a covenant is not a crime, and the break of a covenant does not tarnish an entire congregation. The test of a covenant is when it's broken, and it's aspirational. What this story illustrates, however, is the power of accountability and interrelatedness in community. When we are in community, what we do affects others. If I lie to somebody, I don't just affect myself, it affects my relationship with the person I lie to. If that person acts based on my lie, that can harm their relationships with other people, and so on, and so on. Just like my uncle cares if I tell a lie, everyone in my community cares if I tell a lie, because it harms the community. When I first learned about Judaism in seminary, I watched a video where Rabbi Manis Friedberg spoke of the power of relationship. Jews believe that God always existed and that God created the universe. Rabbi Friedman said that God did not need to create anything. God's existence was bigger than the role of a creator. God chose to create. Why did God choose to create? Because God wanted relationship. God created people so that God could have a relationship with people. God chose relationship. I know I've talked a lot about the Jewish tradition in this sermon. This is because the concept of UU covenant comes from the Judeo-Christian tradition, out of which Unitarianism and Universalism arose. But you don't need to be Jewish. You don't need to believe in God to know of the importance of relationship. You know how I know that? You're all here. Whether you're in this room or you're online, you chose to be here, not alone, but among community. You chose relationship. You know from your family that relationship is not always easy. We have all been through some anxiety, some change. The world is not the same as it was 2.5 years ago. And that is when covenant becomes really important. In our congregations, we try to practice how we want the world to be beyond these doors, whether they're virtual doors or computer doors. We're not going to get it right. The world doesn't have it right, but we practice decision by decision, relationship by relationship. Covenant is a way to aspire to who we want to be in community, and it allows us, through our practice, to build the world that we want to see. I'd like to invite you into a little meditation here. I invite you to get comfortable where you are. Close your eyes or soften your gaze if that's comfortable for you. And I'd like to invite you to look back through your memories and see if you can find a time when you were in a group of people where you felt valued and where you belonged. and that you felt what you did mattered. If nothing comes to mind, I invite you to think about how that might feel to be in a group where you felt like you belonged and what you did mattered. And I invite you to connect to how that feels. And now I invite you to think about why you feel that way. Is there something that the group is doing or not doing that helps you feel like you belong? And that what you do matters? And that you're not doing work alone? As you feel moved, I invite you back into this space. My friends, the work of covenant is creating the guidelines to create those spaces. What we do matters. We are the ones who are going to make change in this broken world. One more thing about UU Covenant. I'm going to go back to Jewish scriptures. Unlike the 10 Commandments that were literally written in stone, so the story goes, UU Covenant is a living document. That means it can and is expected to change over time as the needs of the community change and grow. I believe this congregation recently adopted the 8th principle. That is an example of living tradition. I know that this congregation is going to be going through more change with the transition of your minister. These are anxious times, and this is the time to come together and remember why you chose relationship, and how to, instead of calling people out when they fail, to honor the relationship you wish they would. Unitarian Universalist calls us to welcome them back, to bring people in lovingly with the full knowledge that we are all imperfect and we are all practicing how to remember to choose relationship each and every day. Community Unitarian Universalist Congregation at White Plains is not just a social justice organization, and you are not just a social club. The UU principles are not a Bill of Rights. You are a member congregation of a UU association. According to your website, your mission statement reads, "We covenant to nurture each other in our spiritual journeys, foster compassion and understanding within and beyond our community, and engage in service to transform ourselves and our world." And how do you nurture and foster and engage? Not alone, but in community and in relationship. And that is the work and the blessing of covenant. May it be so.
Lots to think about there, which we can now share some thoughts on. This is a time for dialogue and sharing your thoughts with us about what you've heard this morning and themes, as well as online. Does anybody have something they want to share? Yes.
So I appreciated reflecting on where I felt that I belonged. Because I moved to New York about 12 years ago from Pennsylvania, and I couldn't find my space. I studied at a Jewish synagogue. I was going to any kind of church I could find to find a space. And then 10 years ago-ish, I came to a Pete Seeger concert right over in our sanctuary. And I thought, I don't know any of you, but these are my people. And it just felt like such a fit. And 12 years later, here I am, feeling like I might belong in this crazy, faraway feeling New York. And it's made me want to stay in this place that I'm happy to call home.
I think that was one of Pete Seeger's last concerts, actually.
I didn't know you were at that concert. I was too. I'm usually just so filled with despair about the world right now, but I just feel so good when I'm here. And I keep saying I'm a new member. I don't know how long I can keep doing that, but I've been here about 2 years and started at the beginning of COVID, so I didn't really get to know people. But as the rules sort of loosened up and I got to meet people here, I'm just so impressed how people here do live or strive to live up to the covenant. And I just remember being in the kitchen one day and I was grabbing something, trying to find something very low in a cabinet. And I just heard a voice behind me, a man's voice saying, "Can I help you?" And I just thought that was so symbolic of everything I've experienced here.
Anything online?
No.
Thank you so much for bringing this topic back to the congregation again. I think it's really important that we revisit and renew and be mindful of our covenant on an ongoing basis. It's so easy during the week, 6 days in a community that doesn't practice covenant, and to forget our covenant and to behave in ways that are not covenantal. And so I think it's really important as a community that we revisit this on an ongoing basis. Thank you.
I really enjoyed the point too that the principles are not just for me as an individual. I can't really even do them without my relationships. Speaking of the kitchen, our Amazing Meals for Hope team will be back in the CUUC kitchen tomorrow. No, Monday, August 7th. From 10 to 2. They always need extra hands, so even if you can only offer a few hours, please reach out to Scott Check. Our music director, Adam Kent, is back for his summer travels and is again offering weekly online concerts live from his home on Fridays from 3 to 3:30. Check out Tempo with Adam on Zoom and Facebook Live. You will find details and links for these and more announcements in our eCommunitarian newsletter posted at our website, cucwp.org. If you have any questions about the minister transition as well, you can see me, you can see Al, you can see Mary, or anybody on the board. Like Nikki. Nikki's back. Okay, we'll now have a hymn.
Building a New Way is in the teal hymnal, number 1017. And remember, we've got 4 verses.
Standing, and let's show our appreciation for today's pianist, Jacille Shaw. Thank you. Our hymn leader, Liz Lates. We also thank today's speakers, Carrie Leahy, Anthony Russell, Tech Maven, those of us here in Fellowship Hall to stay for light refreshments and conversation after service. Parents and guardians, please pick up your children from childcare first. After service, we ask everyone to leave their chairs in place, put their hymnals back in the stand, and remember to place your name tag in the basket. Those with us on Zoom can log out of the space and log into a coffee hour Zoom room. The link is on our website, and we will post it in the chat. Please join me now in the chalice extinguishing words written in the service. We invite those on Zoom to extinguish your chalice at home. This beacon of peace, this torch of liberty, this fire of justice, we will take with us in our hearts, that it may light the way to world community for every child of this earth.
In the words of Rabbi Tarfon, do not be daunted by the enormity of the world's grief. Do justly now. Love mercy now. Walk humbly now. You are not obligated to complete the work, neither are you free to abandon it. Go in peace.
We'll now sing the Spirit of Life. Number 1, 2, 3 in the great hymnal.
Oh